all these people could see when I'm buying groceries or I'm not buying groceries. What happens if I want to keep that kind of to myself? That I just want to buy my groceries in peace.
Yeah, that's another factor.
Are there different types of blockchains? What does the word trustless mean, and how does that pertain to blockchain?
So, a blockchain can be hacked.
Welcome to the CryptoNoobz Podcast, where we teach about cryptocurrency, what it's doing, and how it's changing our world. I am your host, Recardo.x.
I'm your co-host, Lamont Astwood, aka Crypto Lambo, and we invite you to walk with us on this journey about learning about cryptocurrency, blockchain, and fintech.
So we have made it to our third episode. Lambo, tell me, how do you feel?
I feel like we're doing well. We're picking up traction, and we're actually breaking down things for people to understand. And as we go more into these episodes, we'll have more discussions about current events, as well as more in-depth, and I don't want to say it like this, but more complicated or like more advanced stuff, because we want our followers to follow along and learn on this journey with us.
So last time, we would have covered getting started with cryptocurrency, basically giving some of the basics of what you need to do to actually start your crypto journey. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the driving force of crypto, which is none other than the blockchain. So Lambo, tell me something. What is the blockchain and how does it affect crypto?
Well, the blockchain really is the backbone or the foundation of cryptocurrency. It's a distributed ledger technology, so it tracks all the transactions that happen within a certain database or system. And that system, that's basically what that was the driving force behind cryptocurrency and the use of cryptocurrencies. There are like different types of blockchains, they have different functions, but really that's the foundation of cryptocurrency. It is the blockchain.
So the blockchain is, you would have said that the blockchain is a database. A database meaning that it really records and it tracks data. So how does it differ from a regular database or something like, say, an Excel spreadsheet?
That's a good question. The blockchain is different from a regular database in that it's more secure, it's more transparent, and it's immutable. So a blockchain can be hacked, although it is incredibly difficult to hack a blockchain. So that means that the information within a blockchain it is very difficult to tamper with that information. And that's one of the use cases for using a blockchain versus a traditional database. Then the transparency. On a public blockchain, if you are a user or if you're within that network to view the blockchain activity, you can publicly view all transactions that are flowing through the blockchain. That's not something that's usually associated with most databases. Also, it's immutable. That means that whatever information goes in, it really cannot be altered as easily. So that's one of the key differences between a blockchain and traditional databases.
So what I'm understanding is that a blockchain is more like this ledger that has everyone's transaction, similar to, like, I'm guessing, like how a bank log acts, where we could see our transactions, we could see where our money is coming out and our money is coming in. But with this particular ledger, I'm understanding that there is much more heightened security. Whatever information that you put in, you said you would have used the word immutable. Whatever information that you put in just stays in, as in you can't edit that information. So I would have also understood from my own personal knowledge of the blockchain that it is used for crypto, and when it is used, there's no counterfeiting, and then there is like no central authority that runs the blockchain. So that brings me to my next question. If there's no central authority, but it has all of this security, how exactly does the blockchain work?
All right. So the blockchain is based on something called decentralization. Decentralization is the removal of one party that controls or authorizes a system or a database. So in this case, you will have different computers and different nodes acting as verifiers in the situation. So a good analogy to give is like this. If you walk into a restaurant, or you walk into a store and you pick up something and you just walk out, the clerk is the only one who could verify whether you picked up something if they have no cameras. Or if it's only one camera, if you were out of view of that camera, you could steal something if you want. But now imagine if that store had 50 cameras and it wasn't even really a big store. So that means that has much more verifiers of what went on during that time, and is much more proof and basically more security to ensure that you don't steal, or everything that's supposed to be in the inventory is in the inventory. So that's a good way to look at it.
So what I'm understanding is that there are just these bunch of people with a whole bunch of computers who are all tapped into this one large network called the blockchain. And if anyone makes a transaction or what's not, all of these people have access to this ledger that shows where you made that transaction. So that brings me to another question, right? So all these people could see when I'm buying groceries or I'm not buying groceries. What happens if I want to keep that kind of to myself? That I just want to buy my groceries in peace.
Yeah, that's another factor. Well, with cryptocurrency, usually whenever you have an account, and when your transaction shows up on the blockchain, and personally I've done this where I've bought some crypto, I either bought or sold some crypto, and I was on the blockchain as it was happening, and I saw my transaction go. It was like probably hundreds of transactions a second, and I actually got a glimpse of my transaction. So they will actually give you like your wallet address instead of like your real name. So it's not going to say Lamont Astwood sold X, Y, and Z token, or Lamont Astwood bought X, Y, and Z token. That's where it leads to some speculation. Whenever you have like huge transactions, some people are speculating like if it's this investor or that investor who is buying all this cryptocurrency. But that is a concern. But as long as the information, like your public, like your wallet address is not public, you don't make it public, it's very difficult for people to find out what you're doing with your crypto.
So if I actually make a transaction, it'll show something else that's not my name, but I'll be able to verify. It will show my address.
Yeah.
So once it shows my address, I am still able to go and do my transactions kind of privately.
Yeah.
And basically no one would come and try to say, hey, I saw you buy, like 3 pounds of chicken.
Yeah, no, don't work like that.
So that brings me to another question. Are there different types of blockchains?
Yeah, there are different types of blockchains. The two main categories of blockchains are public blockchains and private blockchains. So with the public blockchain, that'll be like Bitcoin, Ethereum, a lot of cryptocurrencies where you see they trade publicly, and you could actually go and you could look at the blockchain activity. On a private blockchain, it'll be more so for like if an organization or a specific group of users want to make transactions, but they want to create like a trustless system. So the blockchain will track all the transactions within that particular community. So that private blockchain will not be open to the public, because usually the public probably wouldn't even do transactions relating to that. But that's mainly what it is. But most blockchains we hear about are public blockchains, especially when dealing with cryptocurrencies that's being traded publicly.
Now, one of the words that you used was trustless, right? And from my own research, I have come across that word. What does the word trustless mean, and how does that pertain to blockchains?
Well, in the concept of blockchain, trustless means that if we're in an organization or a group, I don't necessarily have to trust you to trust that the process is working. So let's say if a company decides they want to start using blockchain for their operations, if the company has 3 employees, that doesn't really make sense to use a blockchain or to make a blockchain for that company. But now if the company has 3,000 employees and they're constantly making transactions, verifying stuff, then you will have to create a trustless system, because if, for example, let's say a transaction has to go through 20 people to be completed, you don't have to trust 20 people to verify that it's actually completed. You don't have to be worried about if 20 people did their job. If the blockchain actually works properly, then you can verify at the end of the day that the system worked. So that's kind of like what a trustless system is. That's making it so you don't have to worry if Nelson did something shady. If it's in the blockchain, it'll be on record that he did it.
So basically, this is a system that works by itself. It doesn't need anyone to verify, authorize, or observe it. It just works almost like a robot. It just works.
Not necessarily. You need you need miners, and you need like nodes and all that to go along with it. But yeah, that's kind of like the concept of it. It's just that it creates it where you don't have like it just. I'm trying to find a good word. It just makes it so you don't have to question other people's integrity as much, even though you should. Whenever you deal with cryptocurrency, any type of business, you should question people's integrity. But if you're dealing with a blockchain, it's like, okay, everything is there and it's recorded. And if something happens, we could do an investigation based on the transactions that are public, what happened, where the money has went. You see?
Okay. So at least one of the things that I understand also about the blockchain too is that these nodes and verifiers, there are certain people who are paid to actually verify and make sure any transactions or anything moving in the blockchain is real, is honest and accounted for.
Yeah, that's all right. So that would go into like the jobs of like miners and nodes. So a miner, basically they'll have these computers that run mathematical equations, and when the equation is correct, they'll be rewarded with cryptocurrency. Basically is to verify a transaction. The best way I could break this down is in a simpler term is this. Think of it as like a library, right? Think of the blockchain itself, this whole system as like a library. And the miners are the librarians. The librarian's job is to organize books, make sure they're in the right place, make sure they go with certain authors. So if you have Napoleon Hill, this is his section. Stephen King, that's his section, so and so. Now, imagine every time the librarian does that, they get some cryptocurrency or they get funds as payment for that, because they did their job. They organized it in the right area. Then think of the node. Think of like this particular library. Let's say like, all right, this library's name is Crypto Library Bahamas branch, right? Think of the node as being a branch. So the node that verifies this happened is, think of it as Crypto Library Puerto Rico, Crypto Library Miami, and Crypto Library New York. So their system will have to be updated, and they'll have to verify that this happened. Even though it happened in the Bahamas, they'll have to verify that it happened. So they would be like the verifiers.
So that's where that's where like the other people who are also on their nodes or computers,
yeah, are verifying the transaction took place.
Oh, so it's basically everyone is watching and verifying that
exactly
the transaction.
Same thing with the 50 cameras in the store.
Exactly. All right.
Yeah.
So earlier you would have talked about how a blockchain could be used in a business. Could you expand on that? Like, how is a blockchain used in a business? I thought it was just for cryptocurrency.
Blockchain can be used in a business in a sense that, especially like when you're dealing with like supply chain management, or you're tracking data, and it doesn't have to be just cryptocurrency transactions, just transactions. The best way to give an analogy so you better understand it is, and this is something that I should have talked on earlier, and someone showed me a visual of this, and this was the perfect way to understand really how a blockchain works and how it could be applied to other things even outside of crypto. When you think of a blockchain, think of the chain as a road, right? What drives on a road? Vehicles, right? And what drives in the vehicles? People, right? So the chain in blockchain is the road. The car or the vehicle is the block. So the block basically just moves data across the chain. That's it. It just basically moves data in the car across the road. Now that data is basically the people within the car. That could be cryptocurrency transactions, that could be fiat currency transactions. Any type of data is the people inside the car or the vehicle that's moving along the road. So that's really kind of an analogy for blockchain. So that could be used in a sense of like a business, especially like, and this is something where I've heard about. I've heard about a lot of like medical industry, like the medical industry actually working on this, using blockchain as for patient data. Now, obviously, there'll have to be an actual layer of privacy because a person's health concerns are private. But using that to say like, okay, this is what the hospital reported, send that to their doctor, send it to this doctor, to the pharmacy, so it'll be like a real streamlined record of that patient's health history throughout the years. And that would better track on how the healthcare system treats certain illnesses, how they deal like certain medicines and the life expectancy of certain people. So that's basically one application, and there's several other different applications, especially in the world of finance and banking. Blockchains can definitely benefit in those arenas.
So tell me something. What are some of the benefits of blockchain?
Well, the benefit of blockchain is really just security, just the heightened security and the transparency, or at least with dealing with public blockchains, as well as the decentralization of not having one central authority, because there is like this whole push for central bank digital currencies, which I think personally makes sense, but you also should give people an option to keep their money, I don't want to say off record, but
Private.
yeah, private.
Uh-huh.
And when you look at like a central bank digital currency, that's centralized. That's the government basically issuing those digital dollars or digital currencies. And they ultimately, at the end of the day, they have control over that. Whereas if you have a decentralized system, it's designed to take away power from the one entity. So that's really the benefit of decentralization. It's really just to take away the power take the power away from the few and give it to the many.
So everyone now has a say
Exactly.
in what happens.
Everyone has a say.
All right. So earlier you just talked, so you just would have talked about the central bank digital currency. So what does the blockchain, why does this matter for money?
Well, the thing is with blockchains, it matters for money because it allows faster transactions. It allows faster and cheaper transactions. We all know about situations like when you're sending money from bank to bank, how that'll take days. God forbid you send money on a weekend sometimes. that's not going to hit that Monday. But really, it allows for faster transactions, more transparency in transactions, and it's cheaper. It's just cheaper to send funds. And that's something what I think a lot of people can benefit from, because the reality is, for a lot of people, opening a cryptocurrency account is easier than opening a bank account. And that's something where a lot of people who don't have as much ability to go into traditional banking to handle their funds, that gives them an option.
So it helps them to unbank. I mean, it helps them to bank. So it helps them to bank the unbanked.
Exactly.
Whereby now people now have this access to money and banking that they would have not had access to before.
Exactly.
All right. So one of the things that usually comes up when we talk about blockchains, this system that basically more or less works by itself, that uses some verifiers, these people who are on these computers to verify and make sure that everything that's happening is honest, and then they are rewarded if then they are rewarded for being honest.
Yeah.
So one of the things that usually comes up in this subject is something called a smart contract.
Right.
So my next question. So my next question will be, Lamont, CryptoMount. Hold on. So my next question will be, Crypto Lambo, could you kindly tell us what is a smart contract?
Well, a smart contract is basically like a term of condition. It's written into a code in a system. So it's like, okay, if these particular events or standards are met, then this action will happen. You see, that's the same thing with a contract. When you have a contract, it's saying either you will do something or something will happen. Now you could create a smart contract. Smart contracts can be used in business, and I could give you like something where I wish a smart contract did exist. Is like I paid for a service for something, I made the deposit, and the person was not. Basically, it didn't seem as though they was going to provide that service. I gave them the deposit, and they didn't provide the service, and I was unable to get my deposit back. Now, if you had like a smart contract, something that says, okay, if event A happens, event B will happen, then event C, let's say, all right, if I made the deposit, now a smart contract was made in place. Okay, Lamont put the money up. Now, this person has to do their job, and when they do their job, that funds will be released to them. So it's almost like, even though we talk about like crypto trying to remove the third party, remove intermediaries, that's basically saying, okay, Lamont can't even, if that job is done, Lamont cannot even get back those funds. He cannot get back those funds. Once what he paid for is done, he can't say, okay, he can't lie and say it never happened, then get back the funds. But the person who is providing the service will have the peace of mind to know that the funds are there, and once I do this job, the funds will be released to me once I do the job. So it keeps all of us basically, it creates a trustless system, because now that person doesn't necessarily have to trust me if the smart contract is there and the funds are there, showing that the funds are there. The funds are there and that's confirmed. That person doesn't necessarily have to trust me anymore, because once they provide their service, the funds will be released to them. Me, I don't necessarily have to trust them anymore, because I know, okay, if they don't do the service, I'll get my money back. You see? So that's where, that's one real world application, something what that's like happened to me personally. Is like, yeah, a smart contract would make that transaction much better. I would have a much better experience working with that particular person.
So,
cut from you, sorry. That we're good. Rolling again.
So basically, hold on, wait. Let me try to use a different word that's not basically. So what I'm understanding is, the blockchain is a system where what I'm understanding is the blockchain is a system where any transactions or actions are recorded and available to everyone that is a part of that system.
Exactly.
And where smart contracts enter is, it acts like these contracts. It acts like a regular contract, just put into a computer. So now, if I create a smart contract and I tell it, and I give it a certain action, it executes that action without anyone needing to it executes that action without anyone having to additionally get involved.
Exactly.
Meaning that now, once you actually put, hey, my house is now,
your house.
if you give me one, and let me give an example, and you can tell me if it's making sense. So if I have $100,000 and you have a house, and we create a
Smart contract.
smart contract, This contract will basically make it that if your house meets whatever requirements we put inside the contract,
Yeah.
it will automatically take my $100,000 that I would have also put inside the contract,
Yeah.
and it will just execute the transaction
Yeah.
once you meet your side of the deal and I meet my side of the deal.
Yeah. Once both of us confirm that it was done, then we will have the smart contract showing that this actually happened. And it can't be like I come back later and I lie. That's where we go back to immutable. Going back, you can't really go back and alter data.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't come back and lie and say, oh, well, blah, 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 rah, rah. So that it'll basically just hold your 100,000. And once I confirm, or once you confirm, once both parties confirm that things are up to standard, then it'll release your 100,000 to me. As opposed to you just send it to me and I'm going radio silent, right? Or I'm not, I try to be shady.
That's the end of our episode for today. Well, thank you again for joining us. Once again, Crypto Lambo, it's always a pleasure to have you.
No, thank you.
On our next episode, we're going to be exploring different cryptocurrencies and why you may want to invest in them. Stay tuned. Make sure to follow us at CryptoNoobz on Facebook and CryptoNoobz EDU on Instagram. Thank you.